Greetings, comrades! So, somewhere around November 2019, I first decided that I wanted to make videos and put them on YouTube. In hindsight, that was when something went wrong with the world. Anyway, over these 3.5 years, I've put up 99 videos on YouTube and managed to get 50,000 subscribers. So today, to celebrate this, I'm answering your questions about me, about the channel, and about life in general. Let's not drag it out, let's go. What is your academic background? What do you do for a living? Would you like YouTube being your job? How much do you love your career as a YouTuber and scientist? By far the most popular question I've got. For those who don't know, yes, YouTube is not my main job. I've been studying chemistry for 5 years in university and then I switched to biotechnology for my PhD studies. Technically, I'm not a PhD, I'm a candidate of sciences, an equivalent that we have in Russia. I'm working as a researcher in a scientific institute. Do I love my career or would I like YouTube to be my full-time job? Let's say I think this is an okay career. I'm not in love with my studies, but still think I'm doing fine. I have more than 60 scientific papers published as of now, which is pretty good for my age.
Nice.
So I mostly think that YouTube might be a full-time job for me for like 2 or 3 years, but I don't see myself doing it for like 15 years full-time. I think even if I quit my current job to just focus on YouTube, one day I will come back to research. Who would you have supported in the Civil War, Reds or Whites? What do you think of the Soviet Union's form of socialism? Whites. It's mostly a debate of evolution versus revolution, and I feel that for common people evolution is better 90% of the time. I think the Soviet Union with its form of socialism was a great experiment, but apparently it was too great to handle. How have recent events affected you personally, and as a citizen of Russia, do you notice much change in day-to-day life? Well, the biggest change for me personally is that I've lost my third job. Yes, I had another part-time one. I've lost it because some company decided that they don't want to have Russian employees anymore. Other than that, I've switched to Yandex.Music from Spotify and I'm not able to buy GeoLace for my map videos. Very sad. Overall, it's harder in some aspects, especially everything related to financial transactions, but no huge changes. Where do you get the ideas for your videos? I have a huge doc file with like 120 ideas as of now. Sometimes I'm just talking about random things with people and think to myself, I guess that might be interesting for foreigners. For example, 2 years ago, I've read some short article about how the regional government of my hometown allocated some money to fight hogweed and thought, wait a minute, not everyone knows about that killer plant. That will be a cool video idea. What is your favorite Russian republic and do you have any plans to leave Russia? Chuvasha. I don't have any plans to leave Russia, but I've never ruled out that option. I would like to try living in other countries, even if not permanently. Are you worried about being drafted to fight in Ukraine? Of course I am worried. Technically I don't have any protection from mobilization. But as far as I know, not a single candidate or doctor of science has been drafted against their will so far. I have a driver qualification on my military ID card. If all of a sudden Russia starts conscripting PhDs to serve as drivers, it would mean that we have big problems. Russian writer think a band that's moderately well known in Russia but unheard of in the West you think deserves more attention. Writers Ilf and Petrov, bands Everything is Made in China and Affinage, philosophers probably Chadaev and Chernyshevsky. Which countries and or cultures are you most interested in learning about outside of Russia and why? I feel like Western cultures are too similar to ours, and I don't feel real connection with the East, so I would say Latin America interests me. I feel like it is similar enough to Russia for me to feel comfortable in it while being unique enough to be interesting. If I had to choose one country, I would probably say Uruguay. It just seems like a cool country. What is the most dangerous close-to-death situation you've ever found yourself in? I guess there was a story when me and my friends roamed to explore the nearby unfinished and abandoned dormitory and found some really aggressive junkies on the 3rd floor. The only way out was through the window, luckily it was winter with lots of snow. We were 12, by the way. What good thing did you have while growing up that today's Russian kids are missing out on? And what are you jealous of modern Russian kids that you didn't have when you were growing up? Well, actually it really has a lot to do with the previous answer. The feeling of freedom growing up, a lack of close supervision, you were allowed to do pretty much anything you wanted and go anywhere you wanted. But the feeling of relative safety while walking the streets, that's what I'm jealous of. How did you come up with the username Sitarko and what significance does it have, if any? No significance at all, it is just a combination of my name and last name, easy as that. What is your favorite Russian saying? Ни в пизду, ни в Красную армию. You can translate that one yourself. Favorite video style, favorite video that you've ever made. Actually, I have two and both of them performed terribly. First one is the microelectronics one. I feel like I've really stepped up my editing in that one. I was making it during the spring of 2022, a pretty depressing time, and I really enjoyed making it. The second one is Hamardaban, once again, mostly because I really enjoy the topic and the style of it. What is your favorite town in Russia? What is the thing that you love the most about the city where you live? Would you live in the Arctic region of Russia or you prefer the big city like Moscow? My favorite city in Russia is Moscow. I feel like there are really two places in Russia I could comfortably live in: Moscow and Sochi. I hate the cold, and Sochi is like the only place in Russia with a good climate. But in terms of the comfort of living, Moscow is miles ahead of everything else. How is the underground scene and youth culture in Russia? Is there such as a Russian post-punk scene with Soviet buildings or something similar? Are there parking lot rave parties with hard bass music and squatting Slavs? Or has everything always been a meme? Well, Russian post-punk scene has really been on the rise in recent years with bands like Elektroforez, Durnoi Vkus or Molchat Doma. There are obviously rave parties in Russia, mostly in St. Petersburg, but I'm going to disappoint you. They look just like every single European rave. No squatting gopniks there. Sorry. How did you learn English? Did you spend any time traveling to the West? Well, I learned English like everybody else. When I was a kid, I went to an experimental school. It was more like a kindergarten combined with a primary school in one building, and it had great teachers. I have been learning English since the age of 4 or so. Then when I got older, I started reading books in English and watching TV series in English, and well, here we are. I've never lived in any country other than Russia. And to be honest, I don't think my English is great. Every single video of mine is scripted, and I personally think I will have a lot of problems if I ever start streaming in English, for example. Have you ever visited an ex-Soviet bloc nation? Were they different from Russians or did the common past shape us to be similar? What were your experiences with countries of former Eastern Bloc, its citizens? I have visited two countries that can be considered Soviet bloc, Belarus and Czech Republic. I really liked Minsk. It is like Moscow but somehow feels more like home. With all that crazy rhythm of life that Moscow has. And Minsk definitely feels like some region of Russia, where they just make announcements on the buses in some weird language, like I'm in Kazan or Ufa or in some other republic's capital. Prague definitely didn't feel like Russia, but still close enough to be cool. To be honest, I was not a huge fan of the city center, it reminded me too much of St. Petersburg, but the areas farther away from the center of Prague are awesome, I literally fell in love with them. All my experiences in Prague were also positive, except one incident with some drunk guys one night at a Praha hostel or railway station. Nevertheless, only great memories. Do you think the Soviet Union ever stood a chance of being reformed? Also, do you think the pains of the 90s and the path of modern Russia could have been avoided if it weren't for the shock therapy? Yes, I do. It's not like the USSR was doomed. Look at China, it's still going. But the Soviet elite literally refused to evolve. Also, I do not think that for most ex-citizens of the USSR this experience can be called a shock. It was a fine country, and even its collapse went peacefully enough. Definitely better than the collapse of some other empires. Still, I do think that the path of modern Russia was heavily influenced by its Soviet past, or rather the reluctance to turn away from it. What is the most interesting thing about your country that you like and you can't find anywhere else? What is still your favorite aspect of Russia from your childhood to the modern day? My favorite aspect of Russia is this special personal freedom. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but I've talked about it in my video about 10 things I like about Russia. I really like the fact that people don't really care about each other. No fake smiles, no stupid polite chit-chat. If people ask me how my day was, I know that they genuinely care and don't just ask it because it's the polite thing to do. As for some things that I like that exist in Russia but I can't find it anywhere else, buckwheat. Why don't you eat buckwheat? It's weird. What questions can you not comfortably or honestly answer due to the political climate? How people typically get around such politics? Well, when I started my channel and realized that talking about Russian life is what I want to do, I made a mental list of things I don't really want to talk about. Number 1 was Vladimir Putin, number 2 was Chechnya and Ramzan Kadyrov, number 3 was modern Russian Orthodox Church. Not because everyone who talks about Putin goes to jail, or everyone who talks about the church will be prosecuted for insulted believers. Far from it. You can talk about it for years and be completely fine. I just didn't really want to. As time went on, the list grew longer and longer. I think that's how most people in Russia get around all this. They just make a mental list of things they don't want to talk about publicly, and just don't. As a Russian, if you were able to choose your birth date, what year would it be? Actually, probably pretty much the same era, but like 5 years later, so we'll miss most of the insanity of the 90s, but still enjoy the freedoms of the 2000s. Will you ever use your VTuber model again? Why, yes, here I am. Nah, not really. It was a one-time joke I prepared for April Fool's Day in 2022, but because of well-known reasons I wasn't able to do it back then. Actually, I've uploaded that model and all the animations for it to my Patreon page, so my followers can use it however they like. What are some of your favorite video games? Well, I'm a big fan of action RPGs and open-world Morrowind-like RPGs. But for this question I would like to recommend 2 Russian-made games that are lesser known. The first one is Space Rangers 2, the second one is King's Bounty Armored Princess. They are pretty old already, but they are absolutely amazing, and are probably my top 5 games ever. Other 3 are Titan Quest, Fallout New Vegas, and Dragon Age Origins. Also, back in the days I spent tens of thousands of hours playing Lineage 2, but it was more of an addiction, you know. What are the biggest and most divisive differences between post-communist and communist generations in Russia? According to various polls, there is a very serious generational conflict brewing in Russia, and the line is drawn at around the age of 40. These generations disagree on almost everything. TV versus internet, importance of external politics versus internal, etc, etc. The biggest difference, I would say, is that older people are more willing to sacrifice something for the greatness and strength of the country, while younger people care much more about themselves. Maybe that's not only a Russian thing, though. If you were to travel back into the times of the USSR and were given a chance to rule the USSR for a day, then what would you do? What law will you introduce? 1964 or 1965, right after Khrushchev's resignation. I would try to make sure that the USSR continues their race with the US and Japan in microchips, and will try to put more money and focus on microelectronics. I feel like this is one of the key factors that hindered the economic development of the USSR. They were never able to adapt quickly enough to the new technologies of the 1980s. The most important question: Borщ or pelmeni? Definitely borщ. As a kid, I hated both, but grew to love both as I got older. Still, borщ is just unrivaled. How many bottles of vodka can you drink before getting drunk? 0. I've never tried vodka. Yes, shocking for a Russian. I've tried pure alcohol once. We were 15 and were sitting in the middle of some swamp trying to pierce our friend's ear. Alcohol was used as a disinfectant solution, and after the procedure we just thought, why not try it? 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. How did you become interested in making videos in English? Well, when I thought about making my YouTube channel, I came to the conclusion that I should pick a topic that I A. know something about and B. am interested enough in to not give up after a couple of videos. There were like 3 topics I could do: football, some kind of natural sciences educational videos, and, well, Russian history and culture. Football YouTube is quite a tricky niche with its own peculiarities, so I did not get into it. Science, I've realized that I have enough of that at my workplace. Too much science, and there was a chance that I would have hated my entire career. So it was Russian history left, and it's much more interesting to talk about Russia to people who don't really know much about it. Also, I've never wanted to be popular, to be recognized on the streets and enjoy the perks of the YouTuber's life, so making videos for foreign audiences was really convenient. Also, better money from ads. Do you wish that you have tried out life in the USSR? No, not really. I don't think life in the USSR was that much different from life in any other country in the world at that time. Your favorite novel? Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey. I loved these books as a kid and I still do. Do your family and friends watch your channel? Well, to be honest, most of my acquaintances don't even know I'm doing this. I've always been kind of shy about it. For the first year I had like 200 subs, and that's just not something you tell people you do in your free time. Hey mom, I'm a YouTuber now, I make videos and you know, I got 500 views. Jesus, Sergey, you are 30 years old, what are you doing with your life? So yeah, I think I told my family that I'm making videos only about like a year and a half. Most of my close friends do know, and some of them even helped me with many of my videos. My family don't really watch them now, because both my parents learned German in school, they don't know English. But I often ask them about some aspects of Soviet life, and my father is insanely knowledgeable in the history of Russian Empire, so he helped me a lot with that. I think that is all for today, hope you enjoyed this little format. As always, a huge shout out to my biggest supporters: Steak221, Steven, Елизавета Zakharova, Kirill Klimuk, Zeman Berze and Jordan Lamotte. See you guys next time.